Hi, welcome back. I'm David Witter, founder and CEO of Financial Harvest Wealth Advisors. And today we're continuing with our series on uncommon success, how family stewards produce intentional wealth. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 3, which is educating children. But that title doesn't do it justice because not only will we be looking at educating our grade school children, but even looking at college education, assessing the return on investment, and then throughout the 40 years of our career, what is the role that education plays as we accumulate continuously knowledge so that we compete in today's marketplace? So let's take a look. As customary, I looked at the 3 best practices that I noticed within educating children of the 45 interviewees for our research for the book. The first one is avoiding debt or avoiding loans with college education. Currently, there's over $1.2 trillion in student loan debt, which is creating a tremendous hurdle for our graduates as they venture into the marketplace to try and pay that off. On average, they're coming out with somewhere around $30,000 of student loan debt. But when I looked at the data from Sallie Mae, typically the cost of a college education, almost 73% of it is borrowed, either by the parent or by the student. In contrast, of our 45 interviewees, only 3% of the total cost was borrowed. Sharp difference there between the amount that was borrowed for college education. We'll look deeper at that in our checklist. Second best practice, I call it conditions of satisfaction. In a transaction, in a legal agreement, an employment agreement, there's always a condition of satisfaction or a set of those. In the context of raising and educating our children, this can show up as it's appropriate as they age and then specifically when they get into college. So I broke this into 3 different categories. The first is incentives. Great story here. Husband and wife, for their adult children as they moved into where they purchased their first car as they went on to college, they set it up where they had a loan payment to pay back the cost of the car. Let's say it was $200 a month. The negative consequence was if they missed the payment, obviously they could lose their privilege of the car. But they also built in positive consequences in that if one of their children had, let's say, a semester where they got straight A's, then they would waive a couple months of payments. Secondly is responsibilities. I remember my first job, my first paycheck that I ever got, I was somewhere around 14 years of age. It was like $64, and I was blown away. I thought that was a ton of money. And I asked my mom, I said, "Mom, what should I do with this money?" And she said, "David, I'd recommend that you start saving it because we're going to have the same deal for you that we did for your sisters, which is when you go to college, you're responsible for your gas money, your party money, meaning like going out, movies, ancillary things above and beyond the meal plan, but most importantly, your books. I had to buy my books for my courses. When I would go to buy the books, if I was using my own money, not only did I have to save it, but then it made me a much better purchaser. I would look for the better deals, maybe even getting used books because I was using my own money instead of someone else's money." What this is responsibilities for our children as they're going into college. Last but not least is off the payroll. When is it appropriate to have your adult children after they, let's say, graduate from college to be completely off the payroll? The vast majority of interviewees said once they've graduated from college or once they had their first job. But a few of them said once they were able to support their lifestyle they're used to. What was interesting though is the 6 that answered that way, 4 of the 6 had regrets. They said, "Look, David, because we didn't set it up at the beginning, like this is what our expectations are for when you will be self-sufficient," then their children tended to not spread their wings and become self-sufficient. And the parents had regrets with that. So think with that. What are the requirements or the expectations, and do your children know it, for when they'll be fully off the payroll? Last but not least, third best practice is return on investment. With the amount of debt on student loans of $1.2 trillion, this is becoming a much more pressing item here. So with that kind of debt, what we're seeing is that means the marketplace is not valuing the education that our students are receiving enough so that they can pay off that debt. So what do we do about it? Well, we look for ways of assessing the return on investment. I have two resources here for you. The first one is payscale.com, and specifically there's a link for college-ROI or college ROI. And then secondly, collegemeasures.org. Let me go to PayScale first here quickly to give you an idea of what we're talking about. You can see here what I did was, this is looking at schools for an annual ROI. Just click that radio button. Then down here for ROI for majors, I selected business. Here's the list that is generated. Notice that we had the University of Virginia as number 1. The annual ROI is 12.3%. The way they calculate that, they look at the total cost, tuition, room, and board for a 4-year degree for business, and then they looked at a 20-year net return, which would be the additional earnings capacity over that 20 years for getting that business degree. And that's where they calculate the ROI. Going back to our second one, which is collegemeasures.org, that website is pulling together government data that are being collected from universities on the outcomes that students are producing from the education they're receiving. Great metrics here. Florida is one of the few states that's participating, so they can get real measures of the universities and colleges here in Florida for the outcomes the students are producing. The last item I'll leave you with here on return on investment is MOOCs, which stands for Massive Open Online Courses. Why do I bring this up? Go to the website called coursera.org. Again, that's coursera.org. And let me go over to it here so you can take a look at it. And look at the partners, the colleges that come together to offer these massive open online courses for free. We have Ohio State University. We have Ohio State University. There's University of Florida. Stanford's down here a little bit further. There's Brown, University of North Carolina, Emory, Princeton. There's Duke, Georgia Tech. You can see there's an elaborate number of partners here offering these massive online courses. What they do is, by bringing together these courses, they have over 400 of them. It literally has brought the cost of college education down to nearly zero. Now the good news is that makes it easy, or it's putting downward pressure on college education expenses. But the bad news is it's opened up to the global marketplace the college education and knowledge that used to produce a competitive advantage for us 30 years ago, but no longer. Now there's global students taking these courses that are learning the same education that used to be protected just for American students. So let's go into our checklist. This is an opportunity to do a self-assessment for you within education. The first one is, if you have younger children or grandchildren, what is your college funding plan? There's many ways to approach this. 529 plans, prepaid college, education savings account, uniform gift to minors account. There's many ways and criteria there to be looking at. What is your plan for funding college? Number 2, how will you produce incentives that are appropriate based on the age of your children when they look at the expense for education or to perform with their education? What expenses will they be responsible for? Are they clear about that as they move into college? How long are they allowed to be on mom and dad's payroll? Do they know that? What about assessing the return on investment? Are those narratives even present with your children or grandchildren to be thinking about, if I go to college and I'm paying for that education, it is an investment. What kind of return can I produce from that? Looking at continually accumulating knowledge over the entirety of our careers, not just college. College has now become just the ante to play at the poker table for the entirety of our careers, because we're in a knowledge-based economy. What is your plan in your career to continuously accumulate that knowledge? And last but not least is earn, save, and invest. Fundamentally, that's the way we help our clients. When you look at accumulating knowledge, that is a way of setting the standard for how much you need to earn. So if you need to save and invest enough for the 30 years of retirement, as well as pay for your lifestyle now, that sets the standard for your earning. And then that also will set the standard for how much knowledge you need to continuously accumulate to maintain your competitive advantages in the marketplace. Use this self-assessment when you're thinking about education. Work through that, and remember, Be intentional at producing wealth so that you can have uncommon success.